My name is Joe Peroni, and this is the Rise Above Project. And today I want to talk about the bill that passed this week. Trump's bill. It is going to extend tax cuts for corporations and for the rich. One might ask, how are you going to get all the money to do this? Well, they're not. That's the first part. It's going to add to our deficit by about somewhere between 3 to 4 trillion more dollars. So much for fiscal responsibility that they always claim. But it's even worse than that, because they're going to pull money from the poor in order to do this. So they're going to cut about $1 trillion from Medicaid in order to do this. Now, is this popular? No. The American people have said no, that they don't want this to happen. But what happens is that you have a lot of people that are afraid of Donald Trump, and so these politicians just kind of go along to get along with him because they're afraid that he's going to be able to hurt them somehow. So all these people that think that they're so powerful and so tough, they really don't have any backbones. So what happens here is that the American people now, we're being ruled and we're not being represented by our politicians. So when you cut $1 trillion from Medicaid, what does this do? Incredible damage. But first, I do want to talk about it for a second because there's a couple of people in my orbit, in my life, and they've said, I think this is a great thing because I don't think illegal immigrants should be getting Medicaid. And I also don't think that people who are not working shouldn't be getting Medicaid, so too bad for them. So, okay, we have this internalized learned helplessness or hatred of the middle class and poor, and somehow we elevate these billionaires and these rich corporations and millionaires to these high-level statuses, and we think that they're great for some reason, which I'll never understand. So let me pull out this information just so you don't have to hear it from me. I'm just going to read from it really quick. First, we're going to address illegal immigrants getting Medicaid. There's been a lot of misinformation about Medicaid coverage for immigrants circulating in the news. Wildly inaccurate reporting that undocumented immigrants are driving up Medicaid spending, when the truth is that they are not, capital letters here, N-O-T, not even eligible for traditional Medicaid. And as we go through the article, it says undocumented immigrants are not eligible for traditional Medicaid, nor are many legal immigrants for that matter. So you can be a legal immigrant and also not qualify for Medicaid. So what bothers me here? Well, the lies. There are plenty of people in the news, these journalists, these reporters, these talking heads, that are making millions a year or high six-figure salaries that can't even begin to tell the truth. And why is this? Why is it so hard to be able to tell the American people the truth? And then you got just ignorant people who just believe the most stupid things and then they go with it. Now, there are a lot of people in this world that they work hard, they're busy, they got kids and stuff, and so they can't go through and sift through all of this information. So it's the first thing that they hear on the news and then they roll with it. And so I blame a little bit of everybody, okay? Like, you don't have to be ignorant. You can do some critical analysis and you can look through the facts. That's number one. And number two, I really can't stand these big corporations, including the liberal ones, by the way, who are not saying the full truth. So there's a lot of blame to go around. Now, Medicaid insures about 1 out of every 5 Americans. So 20% of America depends on Medicaid. 92% of Medicaid recipients have full-time or part-time jobs. Sometimes you're going to see that number around 64%. And the gap there is because there are work exemptions for people who are ill, for people who are sick, or people who have caregiving responsibilities for the families. So yes, beyond the shadow of a doubt, Medicaid helps poor, the disabled, the old, the sick, and also regular American workers breaking their back. Many of them, more than 50%, having full-time jobs. Now, according to researchers at Harvard and Yale, this is a very important thing to know because I want conservatives, Republicans, Trump supporters to understand what you're doing here. Because all of this being happy about owning the libs and all this winning that Trump is doing and everybody's cheering that this bill passed, or a lot of Trump supporters are cheering that this bill passed. I need you to know this because I want you to be loud and proud of what you're doing. 51,000 people are being estimated to die every year because of the $1 trillion cut in Medicaid. What it's going to do is it's going to throw 12 to 20 million people off their health care plans. So what do you think is going to happen? Now, a lot of these conservatives, they're really happy. It's like, well, we don't want health care for the poor and middle class. Like, who cares? Here's the thing. Everybody brags about American exceptionalism. So it's supposed to be the best country in the world. All right. There's about 25 first world nations. All of them have health care. We do not. We don't think it's a right. We don't pay for our citizens to have health care. That's amazing to me. So when, as American citizens, we say that we're exceptional, that we could do anything, but how come every other modern country have health care for its citizens and we do not? We're not that exceptional. Or we are, but we have no empathy and compassion for our fellow citizens. Now, I go to church every week. At least 50% of those people are cheering about this. And so these people are on the list too. All these fake people who say that they care about people. They read the Bible, they go to church, whatever. You know, you say you're a good person, you have values and virtues. And yet you don't care about throwing 20 million people off of health care. You don't care about 51,000 people dying every year because you support this guy. You're going to have to learn to live with that. I would like to ask, like, how do you sleep at night? Unfortunately, the answer is you probably sleep on 600 thread count Egyptian sheets, and you sleep very comfortably. Because we do have an empathy problem in this country. Half of these Republicans, they enjoy the cruelty. And the amazing thing here is that hospitals, they also need a profit. So when we're looking at rural areas where most of those areas people are on Medicaid, what's going to happen is when you throw all those people off of their health care plans, the hospitals are going to go under too. And so I have clients that live in rural areas. I live in Nevada, Las Vegas, Nevada. Half the time they have to get flown from different places around Nevada to either go to Reno or to go to Las Vegas because all of these other rural areas, they don't have the health care that they need, and now it's going to get worse. And who are the biggest supporters of Trump? These poor people. So they voted against themselves. I can only tell you so many times, right? I've tried. Here's a good question. Why do people need Medicaid in the first place? It's a simple question, simple answer. It's because people don't make enough money. Is it because they don't work? I've already showed you. They do work. So what's the answer? They need Medicaid because they don't have enough money even though they're working full time. So the answer is because businesses do not pay a living wage. That's the very simple answer. So let me give you an example. Let's say you work for Walmart. Walmart is a billion upon billion dollar company. If you work for Walmart, 60% of their employees have to access Medicaid and food stamps. Does that make sense to anybody? Now, who do you think pays these Walmart full-time workers? In other words, they can't live on the salary that they're living at. So now they have to access Medicaid. They have to access food stamps. Who pays for that? Me. It's the middle class who's paying for this. So what is the business model of a lot of these corporations? Well, the first thing they do is they buy off politicians to make bills like this to crush the poor and the middle class. That's one thing they do. The other thing they do is they want taxpayers to subsidize the labor costs. So taxpayers are subsidizing the labor costs for billion-dollar companies. That should make you angry enough to go out in the streets and protest. Because it's the middle class who is picking up the slack for companies like Walmart. And so there's an extremely high cost to low wages in this country. Let me say it again. There's an extremely high cost for low wages, but not for the companies. The high cost is for the American people. So when we make fun of people, or we try to shame or guilt people to say, you're on food stamps, or you're on Medicaid, so therefore we don't care about you, and you shouldn't be taking our money. That's not the way it is. The system is rigged so companies do not have to pay very much money. And then welfare, which is paid for by the American taxpayers, makes up the difference. Here's how you solve the problem. You make these corporations pay more money. The minimum wage needs to be raised. When you factor in inflation, the American workers have not gotten a raise since 1973. And yet we're going to blame the workers. Pick yourself up by your bootstraps. Do you know what that means? That's not a self-improvement sentence to inspire people. If you were to grab your bootstraps and pull or try to pick yourself up by them, you can't, because the harder you work, the more you pull your body and your head down. It's basically meant as an FU to people. It's go ahead and work, we don't care. And then we're going to talk about this enough in a way that poor people attack other poor people, and middle class people attack other middle class people. And while they're doing this, they don't seem to have the awareness to attack where they should attack, which is the rich and powerful, the oligarchs, the millionaires, the billionaires, the corporations who don't pay enough money, so people do have to access welfare. But we're cutting welfare. So what's going to happen there? If somebody's sick, even if, the flu feels terrible, right? Nobody likes to have the flu. But if it's really that bad, you're going to end up people are going to go to the emergency room for the flu. And then the emergency rooms are going to be filled with people with that. And it's going to end up costing much more money in the long run. But yet, rich people just got their tax break. Corporations just got their tax break. And when you talk about maybe raising taxes for the rich, everybody complains and says you can't do that. If you give a rich person, a millionaire, a billionaire, some more money, what do you think? The spending is going to go up? They already have more than enough money what they need. It doesn't change anything for them. But that money in the middle class hands will be spent. The money in poor areas will be spent. Anyway, I hope you understand what I'm saying here. I could make the show a lot longer because what we're talking about here with Donald Trump is basically this is a death cult. And I can get more into that, but let me not do that for today. I just wanted to talk about Medicaid for today and the $1 trillion that will be cut from Medicaid for absolutely no reason other than to give rich people and corporations more money. My name is Joe Peroni. This is the Rise Above Project. Please subscribe and tell a friend. Thank you.